Hi everyone, thank you for coming along to our talk today about managing anxiety and autism. I'm Haja and I'm a wellbeing practitioner at Sunset 33. So let's begin with an overview of what we will be covering today. So today's talk is 45 minutes long and this is what we'll be covering. Housekeeping, what is anxiety, how it can affect us, what does anxiety look like in autism, what causes anxiety in autism, why are rates of anxiety higher in autistic young people, coping with uncertainty, grounding exercises, positive self-talk, and further support towards the end. So, what is anxiety? So, anxiety is a very natural human emotion and a safe response designed to protect us from threat or danger. It's also known as the fight, flight, and freeze response, which you may kind of have heard of, as it causes us to respond in one of these three ways. As anxiety can be described as this fraction on the bottom of the slide here. So, our kind of perception of threat over feeling of being able to cope. What is kind of often the case for people who have anxiety is that they have kind of an increased perception of threat and a decreased feeling of being able to cope. And what we want to do when helping someone to manage and kind of reduce their anxiety is to change those arrows around. Okay, so it is important to kind of point out that anxiety isn't always bad, and that we kind of do need this FFF response and a certain level of anxiety in order to protect us from real dangers. For example, if we're in the middle of crossing a road and a car suddenly kind of swerves around a corner, it's our anxiety or the FFF response that causes us to jump backward in kind of onto the pavement and stay safe. However, some people with FFF response might be able to might be being triggered at times when there is kind of a real threat or danger. So kind of or when the danger isn't as bad as our minds think it is. And this is when anxiety can become more unhelpful and more problematic. So one way of thinking about anxiety is comparing it to a faulty smoke alarm going off in the kitchen when the toast is burnt, rather than when there is a real fire. So if your smoke alarm is going off like this, if you've kind of been feeling this way for a long time, if the anxiety is really intense and is affecting kind of your ability to do things, then it is important to speak to someone about how you're feeling and get some support. A couple of tips that it can be helpful kind of to remind ourselves of are kind of remind yourself that these feelings will go away. It's not possible for our body to kind of stay in this heightened state for a very long time. And remind yourself that as unpleasant as feeling kind of it can feel, these feelings are kind of designed to keep us safe. So anxiety can affect us in a number of different ways. One area is often it often affects is our thoughts, and it can cause us to kind of develop certain ways of thinking about things, some kind of common thoughts patterns that we might kind of dwell on things that have happened in the past, or worry or kind of ruminate about what we did or didn't do or should have done, or kind of to just focus on things in the future and worry about what might happen, often predicting that something bad is going to happen. So anxiety can also make us kind of feel less confident and able to cope in situations. So on the screen here are some quite kind of common worries. Have a think about whether you can kind of relate to any of these or whether there are kind of any patterns in the type of thoughts you have. So, anxiety can also affect the way we feel. Some of the emotions quite commonly associated with anxiety include kind of feeling worried, nervous, panicky, scared, or stressed. It can also bring about other emotions such as feeling sad, or hopeless, or unsettled, or overwhelmed, or even angry. Again, have a think about how kind of anxiety makes you feel. One of the first steps to manage anxiety is kind of recognizing how and when we experience it. Okay, so anxiety can also bring about physical changes in our body. It can make our muscles shaky, it can make us feel sweaty, it can make us feel sick, it can give us kind of a tight chest or racing heart. It might also make our breathing shallower. It can cause us to have kind of headaches, feel dizzy or lightheaded, and can make us feel tired. Perhaps less kind of associated with anxiety, it can also make us um, kind of make it difficult for us to concentrate or focus on things and difficult to remember things. Lastly, anxiety can affect how we behave. Two of the most common ways in which anxiety can affect behavior is by kind of causing people to escape or avoid situations or places that make them feel anxious. So, anxiety can also cause people to develop certain coping strategies, such as kind of only doing things at quiet times of the day, over kind of rehearsing things, crossing the road to kind of, crossing the street to kind of keep away from people, avoiding eye contact, or constantly checking for signs of danger. So, anxiety can also kind of affect daily routines, such as causing people to eat less, or kind of less than usual, often less because as we kind of don't feel hungry or we kind of feel sick when we're anxious. But it can cause people to eat more. It can cause us to kind of sleep more or less than usual again. So often we find ourselves we can kind of kept awake with worries at night. It can be useful to be aware of any ways that kind of anxiety is affecting your behavior, as we'll come kind of on to in a moment. As it can kind of help us to work out how to reduce our anxiety in the long run. So what we would like to explain on this slide is how these thoughts, feelings, and behavior we've just talked through can impact on one another, and can kind of develop into an unhelpful cycle of anxiety. So this kind of fictional person has an event kind of coming up where they are going to meet new people. And if they have thoughts about kind of going to this event, such as I'm rubbish, I'm gonna I'm rubbish at making good first impressions, no one's going to like me. Sorry, excuse me, I'm going to be alone and miserable. Their brain might kind of misinterpret the situation as a threat. Um, and kind of activate the FFF response, bringing on unpleasant physical feelings and emotions such as kind of feeling nervous, unhappy, on edge, and a bit sick. So having these worries, or kind of worrying thoughts and unpleasant feelings can understandably affect how this person behaves. So this person kind of keeps to self all day, avoids conversations and making eye contact. So a considerable body of evidence now shows that anxiety is substantially kind of more common in autistic spectrum condition. So anxiety is a mental health problem that is kind of common in autistic adults and young people. Anxiety can have a kind of a big impact on daily life, for example, kind of coping at school or at work. Each person's anxiety has a different set of triggers, and everyone has kind of a different approach to managing symptoms. Common kind of causes of anxiety in autism could kind of include suffering from generalized anxiety disorders, maybe fear of kind of social situations, kind of that social anxiety. Again, kind of fear of open spaces and crowds, and many kind of other specific phobias as well. So this is a 5-minute break that has been kind of scheduled in for the webinar, but because this is a recording, I will pause this. So now we are going to kind of spend more time briefly thinking about what causes anxiety in autism. It's important to say at this point that there isn't just kind of one cause that causes it, I guess. And that anxiety often kind of develops as a result of several different factors that kind of all contribute to the likelihood of someone experiencing anxiety. So on the slide here, we have kind of highlighted the most common factors identified by research to cause kind of that can cause anxiety in individuals with autism. So these include kind of intolerance of uncertainty, kind of, or sensory processes, and also, sorry, excuse me, what we call kind of alexithymia. So a significant amount of research has taken place to kind of help us identify the key tools that seem to be responsible for the high levels of anxiety that is kind of seen in individuals with autism. So the image on the slide places kind of intolerance of uncertainty at the heart of the autistic anxiety disorder. Sorry, excuse me. So in short, it's kind of common sensory factors, differences kind of alongside difficulties in making sense of one's emotions, or kind of make the world more kind of uncertain, unpredictable for individuals with autism, therefore kind of provoking potential or kind of potentially high levels of anxiety. Parallel to that, I guess, alexithymia can also kind of contribute to an autistic individual's anxiety by making it difficult for them to kind of regulate their emotions effectively. Sorry, other factors that tend to increase stress and anxiety in autistic individuals are difficulties kind of navigating social situations and or kind of sensory environments, and a sense of kind of being misunderstood or not accepted by non-autistic individuals. So kind of to kind of fit in or not be able to or not be seen as different, autistic individuals might kind of mask or conceal, which can increase levels of anxiety and have kind of a detrimental effect on their mental health. Um, if you would like to kind of, or if you would find it helpful to understand more about what causes you to develop anxiety, have a bit of a think about these areas. Um, as I said, they aren't kind of the only possible causes, but they are some of the most common ones. Okay, so why are rates of anxiety higher in autistic young people? So let's first kind of start by looking at attention to detail. So autistic young people tend to be more detail focused. While this can be kind of a valuable skill, it can also make kind of transitions and change in routines more challenging. So when an autistic person, especially a child, is kind of forced to shift their attention before they are ready, anxiety may result. So, and again, sensory kind of sensitivity. Some individuals with autism experience noise, touch, sight, smell, taste, temperatures, pain, and other kind of sensory factors more intensely. Kind of overwhelming sensory sensations can lead to sensory overload, which can trigger anxiety. Social situations as well, so in kind of increased sensory load and pressure to work within often unspoken social rules can increase anxiety in autistic young people. Language as well, so some individuals with autism kind of process language differently. So anxiety may kind of increase when they find it difficult to express their wants or needs, or when others kind of fail to understand them. Other possible explanations for the overlap between autism and anxiety may include kind of some kind of insufficient support, and kind of autistic young people may face challenges and have kind of they require additional support and resources. Kind of worrying about or being unable to kind of access these resources can also increase anxiety. Social pressures as well, so the stress of kind of living in a world that expects individuals to act or interact in ways that don't feel natural to them may kind of intensify the anxiety. Also kind of insufficient support around them, how others not kind of understanding or supporting an autistic person's needs can be a bigger cause of anxiety and stress. So, what can you do to manage anxiety in the moment? So, recognizing and treating anxiety in autistic young people is particularly important since we can kind of greatly impact, it can kind of greatly impact the core aspects of autism. So, namely, kind of repetitive behaviors and social withdrawals, um, anxiety complicates life for people on the autism spectrum, especially when kind of navigating the social world. It can interfere with school slash job placements and kind of the independent living. So managing autism and anxiety with things that are kind of are comfortable is a good thing to do in the moment. For example, music, it can be kind of a peaceful place. It kind of could be something like a sensory tent as well. It could be a place where you like to go to kind of when you're outside. It's important to kind of identify these places, and when kind of possible, you want to keep active, um, have a lot of kind of active strategies. For example, stress balls, fidget toys, extra. It will give you kind of a sense of control over that environment at that present time. So it is important that we kind of allocate some special time to talk and listen to what worries us, but it's also important that we try to limit the number of reassurance seeking questions that we kind of ask or the people around us answer. And this is a very kind of hard thing to do when you feel like you constantly feel the need to ask for reassurance and answers to questions. So some young people have found it helpful to kind of have some allocated worry time or talking time each day, where you set kind of aside a special time to sit down and talk through the things that are concerning to you. So you can also kind of go a little further than that and create a worry box that can kind of well, that you can write down your worries and concerns on a piece of paper, or draw kind of a picture about your concern and then pop them into the worry box, and then just have a specific time each day you can sit down on your own or with somebody supportive and work through the worry box. In this way you'll kind of be you'll know that those worries will be addressed, and it can also kind of feel containing, quite containing actually, and it can kind of constrain the amount of time that you spend focusing on feeling uncertain. And you can also kind of plan distracting activities to take place afterwards, just to kind of not keep you kind of worrying about the same thoughts that you spoke about. It's also really important that you think about kind of drawing up or and kind of providing a structure to your day or even the week, especially when you're kind of feeling uncertain. So this can be done using kind of visual structures, calendars, whiteboards, apps, whatever works for you. And absolutely involve your interests, your hobbies, your skills. And in doing so, you're going to kind of provide opportunity for enjoyment, engagement in kind of favored activities, and be comfortable containing and soothing distracting. Um, so kind of building in some time for those sort of activities into the schedule is absolutely a good idea. So kind of embedded mood lifting strategies into your daily schedule, and I'll talk more about kind of those in a moment. So maybe plan for some future events and kind of embed them within the day, distracting and kind of useful, enjoyable activities, and where possible, kind of and as much as possible, kind of to try and maintain a routine. So when it comes to kind of planning in advance, you may need to kind of ask others for help with this. For example, kind of asking family or school to give you kind of an advance notice of change, or kind of send information in advance about what is going to happen at an event, for example, on what you can be kind of be expecting. Or also kind of looking up routes to places in advance. So just having a bit of plan in advance, a bit of planning can definitely help with uncertainty. Okay, so it's also important to build in downtime each day, so time to kind of recharge, and this can be done in a variety of different ways. You can think about practicing relaxation techniques, and what people kind of find relaxing is a very personal and individual thing. So, and you'll know kind of what works best for you. I guess creating a playlist of kind of calm and happy songs. This is actually quite a fun thing to do, kind of pulling together a playlist. Similarly, kind of creating a watch list of favorite films, and new films that you maybe never kind of had time to watch. Exercise is a creative way to kind of reduce anxiety as well, so tension, stress. Um, so if there is kind of an opportunity to do exercise, whether that's kind of going for a walk or just jumping on a trampoline in the garden or whatever it is, then it's a great thing to do and it's really kind of beneficial. Mindfulness apps and videos really help to kind of push away worries or kind of worrisome thoughts. Mindfulness isn't for everybody, but for some people it does really work very well. And I will kind of talk about some useful apps you can download in a moment. So there are lots of kind of other calming activities which might help as well. So such as kind of playing with a pet, taking a nap, going for a walk in nature. It's all about kind of finding what works best for you. You may already know what helps you or doesn't, but if you're not sure, have a kind of a go at trying some of these other activities. It can be good to kind of build up a bit of a toolbox or a toolkit of different things that you can kind of try in the moment. You may find it kind of helpful to write down a list of these different activities in your notebook or on your phone as a reminder to yourself. Some people like to kind of, yeah, some people kind of like making a set of coping cards to carry with them, and you can kind of get creative with this as well. So grounding exercises can also help to manage anxiety. So grounding is all about kind of refocusing your attention back onto the present moment and kind of onto the external things around you. So it can be helpful from kind of taking your mind off overwhelming thoughts about the past or future or the uncomfortable physical symptoms that you feel. So looking at the left side of the slide, you can try kind of looking around and spotting things that start with each letter of the alphabet that kind of are a certain shape or a certain color. And it might also kind of help to ground you by asking yourself factual questions such as what's my name? What is today's date? Where am I? What can I see in the room around me? So any question that will kind of bring you back to the here and now. These exercises kind of might take some time to have an effect. So we will also suggest people practice them at first when they aren't kind of feeling anxious, and then they should kind of be easier to recall and have a more kind of helpful effect when needed. There are different types of grounding exercises. This one is called the 5 4 3 2 1 activity, and this kind of involves looking around and identifying 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Give it a go on your own and see if you find this helpful. So, as we talked about kind of already, the things we say to ourselves can have a big impact on how we feel and what we are kind of able to do in situations. So, just as thinking anxious or negative things can make us feel worried or unsure, thinking positive things can help us to feel more confident and be able to kind of take on new challenges. So, think about what phrases might help you to feel more able to kind of cope in anxious situations. Maybe some of the phrases on this slide would be helpful. Um, so maybe there are kind of things that you already say to yourself. I would suggest keeping a list of these things or kind of add them to a coping card and tell them to yourself in times when you need that kind of that confidence boost. So moving on to kind of further support. So if you need further support with your mental health, we would encourage you to reach out to someone, whether it's a trusted adult in your family or community or one of the people or organizations on the slide here. So the wellbeing team obviously at your school/college, university is a good place to start. Your your teachers would be good um people to go to kind of for practical support around revision or kind of taking exams. Your GP, COOF is an online kind of health information, tips and support. Young Minds as well, so kind of a website with information and advice specifically about kind of young people's mental health. and obviously Sensor 33, but I'll have more details on the next slide for that. Um, so these are a few kind of apps focused on anxiety that will support you. So the first app is guided meditation. This is kind of for walking, stress, and kind of difficult emotions. Work breaks, going to sleep, waking up, and many other kind of different categories in the app. So next is we have Calm, which kind of promises to help users sleep better, boost confidence, and reduce stress and anxiety, all with the help of kind of guided meditation, soothing music, and bedtime stories. Then kind of the Headspace, which is kind of designed to help you train your mind and body for a healthier, happier life, and get the most kind of out of your day. The Headspace can be used anywhere. Next, Stop Panic and Anxiety Help, Self-Help. This self-help app reminds you of your strengths and abilities to cope when panic is triggered. So next is a coloring book app, kind of aiding focused meditation. They offer a selection of images to choose from, and also kind of the option to upload your own sketch to color. Our Friends is a supportive online community delivered by Mind Charity, where you kind of where you can be yourself. It is a safe place to listen, share, and also be heard. Last but not least, an app that offers kind of diary mood trackers. It kind of collects recorded mood and activities in the statistics or in the use of calendar. This format can kind of help you understand your habits better and kind of keep track of your activities and create patterns to become more productive. So you can, of course, always reach out to us at Sensor 33 for support, whether it's a one-off chat about something, um, as in kind of when you need it, or kind of more ongoing support. We can help with a range of things, including mental health, housing, employment, money, sexual health, and young carers. You can contact us Monday to Friday between 12 and 5 p.m. or Saturday between 10 and 1 p.m. or leave a message outside of these hours. You can call, text, or WhatsApp or email. We have our drop-ins in our Ely, Cambridge, and Wisbech hubs. Check out our website for kind of locations and the latest opening times. So that is the end of our talk today. Hope that you find it quite helpful. Hopefully we'll have more of these types of webinars coming in the future. Thank you very much for listening.